The battle was over. The human ship had burned in silence, broken into pieces that drifted across the black sea of space. Among the wreckage, one man survived. His name was forgotten by the stars, but the aliens who captured him whispered one word: human. Dragged through silver halls of crystal and fire, he was pushed before the throne of the alien queen. Her throne was higher than the sky, carved from a living creature's bones. Around her, warriors in black armor stood still like statues. The queen's crown shimmered like liquid light, and her eyes glowed as if two suns lived within her skull. The human expected death. Every prisoner before him had been executed. Yet the queen did not order his end. Instead, she leaned forward, her long fingers resting on the arm of her throne. Her voice filled the chamber, strong and sharp like metal cutting stone. "You are fragile," she said. "You are weak. Yet you are calm while others scream. Perhaps you are different." The human said nothing. His throat was dry, his mind empty. The queen raised her hand, and the guards carried something forward, a cradle, but not of wood or cloth. It was built from glowing metal, humming like a storm trapped inside, and within the cradle lay the heir of the alien throne. The child's skin was blue fire, its body pulsing with strange energy. Its eyes were wide, black as the void, and when it cried, the sound was not sound at all. It was a wave of power. The first scream shook the throne room. Soldiers clutched their heads, blood dripping from their ears. The walls cracked. The human staggered, his knees almost collapsing. He felt the sound inside his bones, in his very heart. The queen's voice rose above the chaos. "My child cries day and night. No warrior, no healer, no priest can calm the air. But you..." Her glowing eyes locked on him. "If you can calm my baby, I will grant you what no mort. All has been given. I will give you my hand in marriage. Fail, and you will die before this court." The chamber went silent. The guards stared at him with hatred. The generals whispered in disbelief. Marriage to the queen was not an honor, it was power, the kind that could change the empire. The human was speechless. His heart beat like drums in his chest. Why him? Why this challenge? He was no healer, no hero. He was just a soldier who had lost his ship, his crew, his world. But there was no choice. If he refused, he would die. If he failed, he would die. The baby screamed again. The sound was a storm tearing through the room. The human fell to his knees, pressing his hands over his ears, but it was useless. The alien energy burned inside his skull. He thought his head would explode. The queen's voice cut through his pain. "Go to him. Calm him, or perish." The guards stepped back, their faces cold. The human took one slow step toward the cradle. His legs shook, but he forced himself forward. Sweat ran down his face, his hands trembling. He remembered something from long ago, his mother on earth holding him as a child, singing soft songs that carried peace even through hunger and fear. A memory so small, yet it came back now like a guiding light. His hand hovered above the alien child. The heat from the baby's body burned like fire. He wanted to pull away, but instead, he whispered softly. Words that meant nothing to the aliens. Words from Earth. "Shh. It's okay. It's okay." The chamber froze. The soldiers stopped breathing. The queen leaned forward, her glowing eyes unblinking. The baby's black eyes locked onto the human's. Its scream faded into a weak whimper. The storm of power began to settle. The human blinked, almost in disbelief. Could it be working? The child's small hand, hot as flame, reached out and touched his finger. The court gasped. Never had a child touched anyone without burning them to ash. Yet the human's skin did not char. He felt only warmth and a strange rhythm, like a heartbeat, like trust. For the first time since its birth, the alien heir was calm. The queen rose slowly from her throne. Her crown blazed brighter, and her voice thundered across the chamber. "The human has done what none of you could. He has touched the heir. He has given him peace. The soldiers lowered their heads in shame. The generals clenched their jaws, eyes filled with silent rage. The human stood frozen, the child still gripping his finger. He had no idea what he had just begun. The queen's final words echoed like a blade cutting through the air. You are no longer just a prisoner. You are part of the trial, and if you survive, you will rule beside me. And with that, the human's fate was sealed, not as a slave, not as a victim, but as the one who must face the queen's impossible promise. The alien child rested for only a moment in the human's arms. The hall was silent, the silence of shock, of fear, of disbelief. The generals whispered among themselves. The guards shifted uneasily. The queen's eyes glowed brighter than before, like a sun ready to burn. Then it happened. The child opened its mouth once more, and this time, the cry was not only soundless, it was a storm. The wave of power burst out like an invisible explosion. The silver walls of the throne room cracked, spears and armor rattled, statues of long-dead kings shattered into dust, soldiers fell to their knees, blood leaking from their noses. The human staggered back, clutching the child to his chest. The scream passed through him, not around him. He felt every bone inside his body vibrate as if ready to break apart. His vision blurred, his ears rang, and still the cry continued. But unlike the aliens, he did not fall. He remembered Earth again. He remembered bombs, fire, and chaos. He remembered lying in the ruins of his city as a boy, covering his younger sister's ears while the world above them collapsed. He had survived that storm of terror. He could survive this one. Shh. It's okay. You're safe, he whispered, forcing his voice to stay steady, though his chest felt ready to burst. The queen watched him closely. Around her, her generals struggled to stay upright, their faces twisted with rage. To see a fragile human, an enemy, standing when they could not, was an insult deeper than death. Impossible, one hissed. He resists the scream, another growled. But the queen said nothing. She only watched, her burning gaze unreadable. The child clung tighter to the human's chest. The storm of its cry grew sharper, tearing through banners and pillars, shaking the ground itself. Yet the human, against all logic, kept standing. He began to hum, a simple human sound. A melody he remembered from nights when the world outside had been too dangerous, when his mother had sung him to sleep in a broken shelter. The hum cut through the storm, not stronger, not louder, but steadier. A rhythm, a comfort. And slowly, unbelievably, the cry weakened. The child whimpered, the energy fading, until at last it let out a sound closer to a sigh than a scream. Its glowing body dimmed slightly, resting against the human's heart. The silence that followed was even louder than the cry itself. Every soldier, every general, every shadow in that throne room stared at the human, as if they were looking at something unnatural, something that should not exist. The queen finally rose from her throne. Her long robes shimmered like fire and ice. She stepped down the stairs, each movement graceful but heavy with power. She stood before the human, towering over him, her crown brushing the air like the edge of the universe. "You stand while my warriors fall," she said softly, though her voice carried to every corner of the chamber. "You hold the air while even my healers bleed at a single scream." Her eyes narrowed. "You are either blessed or cursed." The human said nothing. His throat was dry. The child's warmth pressed against him, and he dared not move. One of the generals stepped forward, unable to remain silent. His armor cracked from the scream, his face twisted with fury. "My queen, this is dangerous. The child bonds with him, a human. He cannot be trusted. Let me end this now." He drew his blade. The air hissed as its edge burned. The human froze. He had no weapon, no strength left to fight. He could only shield the child in his arms. But before the general could strike, the queen raised her hand. "Stop!" The general halted, though hatred burned in his eyes. The queen's voice grew sharper, colder. The heir has chosen. If you raise your weapon again, you raise it against the future of this empire." The general bowed his head, though his jaw trembled with rage. He stepped back, but the shadows in his eyes promised betrayal. The queen turned to the human again. "You do not understand what you have done. The heir is the heart of this empire. His cry can destroy worlds. His silence can save them. And now, he listens to you." The hall echoed with her words. The soldiers whispered in fear. The human swallowed, his voice weak. I don't understand why." The queen leaned closer, her golden light surrounding him. "Perhaps because you are not one of us. You are something the child has never felt before. Something strange. Something human." Her eyes burned into his. "But know this. Your trial has only begun. If you cannot control him, then he will destroy you, and everything you touch." The human looked down at the child in his arms. Its black eyes blinked up at him, no longer filled with storms, but with something else: curiosity, trust. And in that moment, he realized the truth. The promise of marriage was not a gift. It was a chain. He was no longer a prisoner in the queen's dungeons. He was a prisoner of destiny, for if he failed to keep the child calm, the cry of the heir would not only shake the throne room, it would shake entire worlds. The throne room was cracked and broken from the power of the child's cry, yet no one dared move. The human still stood at the center, holding the heir close to his chest, as if the fragile act of comfort were enough to hold back the storm of a galaxy. But the calm would not last. The baby stirred. Its glowing skin flickered like fire in the wind. Its black eyes shifted, restless, uncertain. The silence felt dangerous, like the pause before thunder strikes again. The general saw it too. Their whispers returned, sharp and poisoned. The heir should not touch him. This bond is unnatural. If the child favors a human, our empire will be shamed. Their words slithered through the chamber like smoke. The human could feel their hatred pressing on him as much as the child's weight in his arms. The queen lifted her hand, and at once the whispers died. Her golden eyes burned, fixed on the man. "Set the heir in his cradle," she commanded. Her voice was soft, but in it was a power greater than armies. The human hesitated. The child clung to him, its small fingers gripping his armor with surprising strength. When he tried to loosen the hold, the baby whimpered. A faint glow rippled across its skin, as if anger were already rising again. The queen's gaze sharpened. "Do it." The human swallowed hard. His hands trembled as he leaned toward the glowing cradle. The heat from it stung his skin, as though the cradle itself rejected him. Slowly, he tried to lower the baby back inside. But the moment the child's body touched the cradle's surface, it screamed. The sound was sharper than before, filled with fury. Soldiers collapsed to their knees, holding their heads. The silver walls shook once more, pieces of crystal raining from the ceiling. The human pulled the child back into his arms without thinking. At once, the scream lessened. The baby's trembling slowed, its glow dimming back to a warm pulse. The hall gasped. The queen's crown flickered brighter, though her face remained unreadable. For the first time in centuries, her heir had chosen someone else's arms over hers. One of the generals broke the silence, his voice trembling with rage. "This is blasphemy! The heir must never—" The queen's eyes cut toward him, and he froze mid-sentence. The human stood frozen, still holding the child. He did not understand why the baby trusted him, why it rejected its own mother's touch. But deep inside he felt something strange, a connection. The child's small hand lifted, glowing faintly, and touched his cheek. The human shivered. Heat poured into his skin, but it did not burn. Instead, it felt alive, like energy, like a heart beating not his own. The court gasped again. The heir of the alien empire, feared for its power, had given its first touch to a human. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The chamber, the soldiers, even the queen. All of it faded. There was only the child and the strange rhythm that passed from its glowing hand into the human's blood. But that moment was broken quickly. The general's whispers rose again, furious and venomous. This cannot be allowed. The queen is blind. He must be removed before it is too late. The queen raised her hand, silencing them once more. Her voice echoed, strong and sharp. The heir has chosen. Do not question the will of the future. Her words calmed the court, but only on the surface. The human could feel the stares of the generals like knives at his back. He looked down at the child. Its black eyes studied him with a strange, knowing look, as if it saw deeper than its age allowed. He whispered, barely audible, "Why me?" The child did not answer, but its hand remained on his face, pulsing with warmth. The queen stepped closer, towering over him. Her robe brushed the floor, her crown a storm of light. She studied the sight of her heir touching a human, and for the first time, a flicker of something human showed in her eyes. Curiosity. "You are bound now," she said slowly, "whether you understand it or not. The child's first touch is more than comfort. It is bond, blood, destiny." Her words sank deep into the silence. The generals shifted uneasily. The guards avoided meeting her gaze. The human felt his chest tighten. A bond? A destiny? He had not asked for this. He had been ready to die as a prisoner, not become a piece in some alien prophecy. The queen's voice dropped lower, meant for him alone. "From this moment, you carry more than your own life. If you betray the heir, if you fail him, his cry will not only destroy you, it will destroy your entire species." The human's breath caught. The weight of the baby in his arms suddenly felt heavier, like carrying the fate of Earth itself. The child blinked, its eyes calm now, and nestled closer against him. The warmth spread again, comforting, but terrifying. The court stared in silence. None dared speak against the queen's words, not openly. But in the shadows of the hall, hatred still boiled. The general's eyes followed the human like predators, waiting for their chance to strike. And though the baby had calmed for now, the human knew the truth. Peace was fragile. The child's next cry could shatter it in an instant. And with the heir's first touch, the human's true trial had only just begun. The court had witnessed the impossible. The alien heir's first touch had not gone to its mother, the queen, but to a fragile human. Whispers spread through the throne room like fire in dry grass. The guards stood stiff, their faces unreadable. The generals bowed, but their eyes burned with silent rage. The queen returned to her throne, her robes flowing behind her like rivers of fire. The human still held the child in his arms, unsure if letting go would awaken another storm. He stood alone in the center of the chamber, aware of 100 eyes fixed on him, some filled with fear, others with hate. When the queen finally spoke, her voice cut through the tension like a blade. "The heir has chosen," she declared. "The bond is sealed. From this day forward, the human will remain at my court. He is no longer a prisoner, he is a guardian." The word echoed through the hall. Guardian. The human's heart pounded. Guardian? He had no power, no weapon, no training for such a role. But before he could protest, the queen's gaze froze him where he stood. To defy her word was death. The soldiers bowed. The generals did the same, though their jaws clenched. They did not dare speak against her, not openly, but in the corners of the room, their shadows whispered. That night, the palace glowed with cold silver light. Long corridors stretched like endless veins, guarded by statues and fire-lit torches. The human was given a small chamber, far from the queen's throne, but close enough to be watched. The child lay beside him in a cradle of strange metal, its glow dim, its breathing steady. The silence should have been peaceful, but the human could not rest. He felt eyes on him even in the dark. and he was right. In another chamber deep within the palace, the generals gathered in secret. Their armor clinked as they moved, their voices hushed but sharp. "This is an insult," one hissed. "A human, chosen over us. A human, holding the future of the empire. The queen has lost her mind," another growled. "She risks everything for a creature that should have been executed." They circled the table, shadows flickering across their faces. At last, the eldest of them spoke. His voice was low and steady, colder than the rest. "The child must be protected, but protection does not mean the human must live. If the bond breaks, the queen will have no choice but to look to us again." The generals fell silent, the weight of his words heavy in the room. One by one, they nodded. Plans were forming in the shadows. Back in his chamber, the human stirred awake. A faint sound had broken the silence. Soft footsteps in the corridor. His eyes darted to the cradle. The child still slept, glowing faintly, its small chest rising and falling. He rose to his feet quietly. The door to his room creaked as if touched. His body froze. Then, a whisper. "Human." He turned sharply. A figure stood in the darkness beyond the doorway. A tall alien, cloaked in black, with eyes like cold knives. The stranger stepped inside, silent as smoke. "You do not belong here. The generals will not rest until your blood stains these halls." The human swallowed hard. "Then why warn me?" The cloaked alien tilted his head. "Because the queen's promise protects you. For now. But promises can be broken, and shadows do not wait." Before the human could answer, the figure slipped back into the corridor and vanished, leaving only silence behind. The human's hands trembled. He returned to the cradle. The child's small hand twitched in sleep, glowing faintly, as if sensing his fear. The next morning, the throne room was filled once more. The queen sat high on her seat of living bone, the generals kneeling at her feet. The human was brought forward, the heir in his arms. The queen's eyes burned as she studied him. "You stood through the storm of the heir's cry. You touched him without burning. Now you will prove your worth again." Her words struck him like a hammer. Another test. Another trial. The generals smiled faintly, though they bowed low. Their plan was already alive in their minds. For them, this next trial was not a chance to test the human, it was a chance to break him. And in the shadows of the palace, whispers of betrayal grew louder. The human looked at the child in his arms. The bond was there, fragile but real. He could feel its warmth, its trust. But could trust protect him from the knives waiting in the dark? The queen's voice thundered again, silencing his doubt. "Today, you will walk into the heart of the palace, and there, you will face what no warrior has survived." The human's breath caught. Around him, the general's smiles sharpened. Enemies were moving in the shadows, and soon, the human would discover just how deep their hatred ran. The throne room's air was heavy, thick with tension. The generals bowed low, their voices silent, but their minds plotting. The queen sat upon her high seat of bone and flame, her crown blazing like a second sun. Before her stood the human, weary yet unbroken, the alien heir resting against his chest. The child glowed faintly, its black eyes half closed, as if comforted only by his presence. The queen's voice filled the hall, deep and commanding. "The human has calmed the heir when no one else could. He has carried him through storms of power. From this day forward he is bound to the child." The word bound echoed through the chamber like a chain snapping shut. The human stiffened. Bound? He was already a prisoner of fate. Now the queen herself spoke it aloud. The generals exchanged quick glances, their eyes sharp as blades. If the bond was real, then the human's death would no longer be simple. If the child depended on him, removing him could also endanger the heir. But hatred does not vanish. It only hides. Days passed, and the bond between man and child grew stronger. Wherever the human walked, the heir followed with its glowing eyes. When soldiers approached, the baby cried, and only the human's voice could calm it. The palace began to whisper. Servants who once sneered now stepped aside in silence. Guards who once mocked him now lowered their eyes, afraid of the child's power. Some even began to murmur another word: chosen. Yet with whispers of respect came whispers of danger. The generals could not ignore the sight of the heir clinging to a human instead of its own mother. The court's balance was shifting, and every shift in power drew blood. One evening the queen summoned him privately. The chamber was vast and silent, the walls alive with strange light, as that pulsed like stars. She stood by the window, staring out into the void of space. "The child clings to you," she said, her voice low. "Even I cannot separate him from your arms." The human swallowed, unsure if this was praise or accusation. "I never asked for this," he said quietly. "I only tried to survive." The queen turned to face him, her golden eyes burning brighter than the stars outside. Survival is never simple. The heir does not choose by mistake. He feels what others cannot. He sees what others do not. If he holds to you, it is because you are part of his destiny. Her words pressed on him like a mountain. Part of his destiny? A human soldier, broken and lost, now tied to the future of an empire? Before he could speak, the queen stepped closer. Her presence was overwhelming, a storm wrapped in flesh. "Do you understand what this means, human? If the heir's heart belongs to you, then one day, so may his crown." The human froze. The crown, ruling beside the queen, he had no desire for power. But the thought struck him with cold fear. If the generals believed this, they would never stop hunting him. That night, the danger revealed itself. As the human lay awake in his chamber, the child asleep at his side, a faint hiss filled the room. He opened his eyes to see smoke curling through the air, his chest burned with poison. The cradle glowed weakly as the baby stirred, ready to cry. The human lunged, pulling the child into his arms. He pressed his hand over its mouth, whispering frantically, "Shh, please, don't cry." If the baby screamed now, the entire palace could collapse. His lungs ached, his head spun, but he forced himself to hum, the same human song, the same broken melody. Slowly the child calmed. Its glow dimmed, and its small body pressed against his chest in trust. The smoke thinned, fading away. The assassins were gone, leaving no heir to Yang Ace. But the message was clear. By morning, the palace was in chaos. The queen's wrath shook the walls. Soldiers were punished, guards executed, corridors sealed. Yet the generals bowed low, their faces masks of loyalty. The human stood before her, the child in his arms once more. The queen's voice thundered. "They seek to break the bond, but every attempt only proves its strength. The heir rejects all but you." The human's chest tightened. The bond was real, dangerous, unshakable, and growing stronger with each trial. The queen's golden eyes softened, if only for a heartbeat. "Remember this, human. The bond you carry is not only trust. It is power. The most dangerous power of all." Her gaze sharpened again, cutting into him. "And power always draws enemies." The human lowered his eyes, his voice quiet. "Then maybe it will destroy me." The queen's lips curved into something that was almost a smile, but not quite. "Perhaps. Or perhaps it will save you." Behind them, in the shadows of the hall, the generals watched. Their hatred had not faded. If anything, it burned hotter. The bond was no longer just a threat to their pride, it was a threat to their rule. And they would not allow it to last. The palace glittered with banners and fire. The queen had summoned her court to gather once more. The hall filled with generals, nobles, guards, and shadows. The throne room, those scarred from past cries of the heir, still shone with a terrible beauty. The human walked forward, the alien child resting calmly against his chest. For days now, the heir had refused every hand but his. Even the queen, proud and untouchable, could not keep the child for long. This truth burned like poison in the hearts of her generals. Whispers followed him as he entered the chamber. The child favors him. This is weakness. This cannot last. The queen silenced them with a wave of her hand, her golden eyes fixed on the human, unreadable, burning. You have passed every test, she said. You have calmed the heir when no one else could. You have survived poison and plots. Today, your trial ends. Today, you will be judged. The words struck the hall like a thunderclap. The human froze. Judged? His chest tightened, but he said nothing. He dared not defy the queen. The ceremony began. Fires roared to life along the walls, and the air grew heavy with smoke. The generals stood closest to the throne, their armor polished, their faces sharp with false loyalty. Behind them, rows of soldiers knelt, watching. The queen rose. Let all witness. The human has calmed the air again and again. By this bond, he has earned a place in my court. But loyalty must be proven in blood. Her words rang out, but before she could continue, the betrayal began. A hiss filled the hall. Soldiers in the back fell to the floor, choking. Dark smoke spread quickly, filling the air with poison. The human coughed, clutching the child close. The baby stirred, its glow flickering dangerously. The first whimper rose in its throat, and the court froze. If the child cried now, the entire palace would shatter. Through the smoke, shadows moved. Blades flashed. The general's men stepped forward, their masks of loyalty falling away. Kill the human, one shouted. Sever the bond before it is too late. The guards clashed, but confusion spread fast. Poisoned air made soldiers stumble, their weapons slipping from their hands. The traitors pushed forward, their eyes blazing with hate. The human staggered back, every breath a knife in his lungs. He shielded the child with his own body. Shh. Stay calm, he whispered, though his voice trembled. Don't cry. Please, don't cry. The baby whimpered louder, its glow turning white-hot. The walls shook, cracks spreading across the silver pillars. The queen's roar cut through the chaos. Traitors! Her voice thundered, shaking the air. Her crown flared like a burning star as she lifted her hand. Bolts of golden fire shot from her palm, striking down the closest general's men. Their screams echoed as their bodies burned to ash. Still, more came. The human's vision blurred. Poison filled his blood. His knees buckled, but he forced himself to stand, humming that same earth song, the lullaby of his childhood. His voice was weak, but steady. The child's glow dimmed. The whimper softened. Against all odds, the baby pressed against his chest and quieted. The storm was stopped again. The court gasped. Even in betrayal, even with death all around, the human had done what no one else could. He had calmed the air. The queen's fury grew like a sun exploding. She descended from her throne, her robes trailing fire. With a sweep of her arm, golden energy burst across the hall, shattering the weapons of the traitors. You dare strike in my court? She thundered. You dare threaten the heir? The surviving generals fell to their knees, their betrayal exposed, but their eyes still burned with hate as they spat their final words. The empire cannot belong to a human. The queen raised her hand, and with a single gesture, their voices were silenced forever. Their bodies collapsed into dust, scattered by the same wind that had carried their whispers. The hall trembled into silence. When it was over, the queen turned to the human. Her face, always cold and distant, now showed something more. For the first time, her golden eyes softened. You risked your life to protect him, she said. Even as the court turned against you, you shielded the heir with your body. The human could barely stand, his lungs burning from the poison. Still, he held the child close, unwilling to let go. The queen's voice dropped, low and steady. They tried to take you from us. They failed. The bond is real. And now, by the law of this empire, none may deny it. The soldiers bowed, fear in their eyes. The traitors were gone, but their hatred lingered like smoke in the air. The human looked down at the baby in his arms. Its black eyes blinked, up at him with innocent trust. He had survived again, but at what cost? The queen's final words echoed across the hall, sealing his fate deeper than before. You have proven your worth in blood and fire. From this day forward, you are no longer trialed. You are chosen. The throne room was quiet after the storm. Smoke still lingered in the air, the scent of fire and ash heavy on every breath. The generals who had betrayed their queen were nothing but dust scattered across the floor. The soldiers stood frozen, their eyes lowered, afraid to move, afraid to speak. At the center of the hall stood the human. His body was weak, his lungs still burning from the poison. His hands trembled, but he did not let go of the child. The alien air rested against him, calm and silent, as though nothing had happened. For the first time, the great court of the empire bowed not to a warrior, not to a general, but to a fragile human. The queen descended from her throne, her crown glowing like a star. Each step echoed through the hall, heavy with judgment, heavy with fate. She stopped before him, her golden eyes locked on his. The silence stretched so long it felt like the universe itself was waiting for her words. At last she spoke. You have done what none of my kind could. You have calmed the air's storm. You have stood against poison, shadow, and betrayal. You have shielded him with your own flesh. Her voice carried through the broken chamber. You are not prisoner. You are not trialed. You are chosen. The soldiers struck their fists to their chests in salute. The sound rolled like thunder, but beneath it, whispers stirred. Whispers of fear, whispers of doubt. Could the empire truly accept a human as the heir's guardian? As something more? The queen silenced them with a glance. Her voice rose again, sharper now. And more than chosen. You are bound. The heir has given you, through his first touch, his trust, his silence. In this bond lies power beyond war. In this bond lies the future. She turned, her gaze sweeping across her court. From this day, the human stands beside me, as protector of the heir, as consort of the throne, as promised. The chamber erupted with shock. Some bowed lower, others clenched their fists in fury, but none dared speak against her decree. The human's breath caught. Consort? Promised? His heart pounded in his chest. He had not asked for this. He had never even dreamed of such a fate. He was only a soldier, lost and broken. And now the queen, ruler of a vast empire, had declared him to stand at her side. He looked down at the child in his arms. Its black eyes blinked up at him, calm and steady, as if it already knew the truth. The queen's voice softened, meant for him alone. You are speechless, but one day you will understand. The child has chosen you, and so have I. Her words were final, leaving no space for refusal. But even as her decree echoed, danger lingered. In the corners of the court, hatred still smoldered. Many had bowed today, but their loyalty was thin, their fear temporary. The human could feel it, the weight of 1,000 eyes watching him, waiting for him to fail. The queen sensed it too. She leaned closer, her crown blazing. They will come for you again. Again and again. But remember this. The heir is your shield as much as you are his. Together, you will survive. Her words carried both promise and warning. He was not free. He was bound. Bound to the child. Bound to the queen. bound to an empire that might never accept him. And yet, he felt the small hand of the child grip his finger once more, warm, steady, trusting. It was not chains he felt in that moment. It was something else, something fragile, something powerful. Hope. The court dismissed. Soldiers filed out, heads bowed. Servants hurried to clean the broken floor, their whispers quick and fearful. The throne room emptied until only 3 remained, the queen, the human, and the heir. The queen returned to her throne, her golden gaze never leaving him. The galaxy will speak of this day. Some will call it madness, some will call it weakness, but in time they will call it destiny. The human stood silent, the child resting quietly against him. His life was no longer his own. He carried not only the heir, but the weight of a crown, a future, a promise that stretched beyond stars. And though fear twisted in his chest, a new fire burned as well. He had survived every trial. He had calmed every storm. He was no longer just a man lost in the void. He was the one who held the heir, the one the queen had chosen, the one the shadows feared. The queen's final words sealed it, echoing through the vast chamber like prophecy. The empire has a new guardian, and his name is human.